What if I told you the Chiefs' decade didn't end with a roar? It ended with a gasp. Uh, Denver didn't just beat Kansas City on Sunday. They wrested control of a division that has been the Chiefs' for 9 straight years. And they did it on defense, grit, and a walk-off field goal that felt like a punctuation mark on a changing era. You could call it a chess match disguised as a football game. The score 22-19 looks tidy enough, but the story inside those numbers is a lot messier and a lot more meaningful. This wasn't Mahomes and fireworks. It was trench warfare, time of possession, and a defense that refused to blink when the game mattered most. Let's break it down. First half, nothing but a slow grind. Both teams traded field goals and mistakes. The defenses owned the line of scrimmage. By halftime, it was 6-6, and you could feel the game tightening like a drum. Neither offense found consistent rhythm. Kansas City's run game was largely neutralized. The Chiefs finished with only 62 rushing yards, and Mahomes was forced to work in a compressed pocket more often than we're used to seeing. That's credit to Denver's front and to a defensive plan that prioritized pressure and containment. Then came the third quarter, where the Broncos finally made their move. Jaleel McLaughlin bullied his way into the end zone for Denver's first touchdown. It felt crucial, the first real sustained offensive payoff of the night. The Chiefs answered with a Kareem Hunt run, and later Mahomes connected with Travis Kelce to take the lead late. For a team used to being the final word, the Chiefs took that lead with authority and the usual late-game swagger. But this is where the Broncos' narrative took over. The Patriots of pass rush? Not exactly. The Broncos found pressure, created chaos, and made Mahomes uncomfortable enough to stall a late drive. Jaquan McMillion's sack in the fourth quarter, a third-down takedown that forced a quick punt, was the decisive play. It wasn't flashy glamour. It was a pocket fold, a quarterback forced to throw earlier than he wanted, and a defense showing up when it mattered. That stopped the Chiefs cold and put the ball back in Bo Nix's hands. Nix, who has had critics and doubters, became the closer. He moved the offense methodically, a third-down conversion to Cortland Sutton near midfield, then a jolt to Troy Franklin for 32 yards that set the stage. When Wil Lutz trotted out for the 35-yard field goal as time expired, it felt less like chance and more like completion, a well-executed, calmly finished job. Game-winning moments like that don't happen without context. They happen because a defense has been dominant all season, because a kicker has been reliable when the crowd is screaming, and because a quarterback can manage a clock and avoid hero plays that put everything at risk. The Broncos did the little things. They blocked an extra point earlier that made the difference later. They kept penalties smaller, they won the battles at the line, and they forced Kansas City to play their game instead of the Chiefs' script. Now for the ledger. Mahomes finished 29 of 45 for 276 yards, 1 touchdown, and an interception. Numbers that look fine on their own but felt subdued from the man who is used to bending games to his will. He was pressured, sacked 3 times, and shoved off the usual comfort of a free-flowing passing attack. The Chiefs' ground game was stunted. And with the loss, they fall to 5-5. That's not a single-game problem. It's a season problem. Suddenly, the Chiefs are scrambling for a path back into the postseason, probably not with the luxury of a top seed, and maybe not even with a guaranteed spot. Denver, meanwhile, is now 9-2 and sitting comfortably atop the AFC West. They're not just leading a division, they're writing a narrative. This is the franchise that last won the West in 2015, the Peyton Manning year. To hear Denver fans tell it now is to witness history in reverse. A defense-first identity that grinds out wins, closes games, and leaves little room for late-game heroics from opponents. That identity has carried them through a season where the offense has been functional but rarely dominant. When your defense gives you a chance every week, you don't need 30 points. You need patience and discipline. The Broncos have both. There are bigger implications beyond a single division lead. The Chiefs, who have been the AFC's anchor team for years, now face a gauntlet of must-wins to even secure a wild-card slot. With games coming up against tough opponents and a road schedule that doesn't ease, Kansas City's margin for error has shrunk to nearly 0. They can make the playoffs, of course they can, But the comfortable narrative of Kansas City as automatic contenders has been complicated, perhaps irreversibly so. Meanwhile, Denver's climb is validating a different approach. They've shown that pressure can create its own offense. Sacks turn into short fields, turnovers turn into three-point swings. When your special teams and defense combine to shift expected outcomes, your offense only needs to manage risk and convert when given a chance. That recipe has been working. Bo Nix didn't throw a touchdown, but he didn't need to. He managed the clock and made crucial throws when required. The kicker did the rest. Let's zoom out a bit and talk about what this game means in the larger story of the AFC. We now potentially have a very different playoff map than the one we expected in August. Denver and New England, also 9-2, are staking claims not just for division crowns, but for top seeds. The Colts are lurking. The Chiefs are on the outside looking in. That compression at the top of the conference makes each game feel magnified. Every injury, every missed field goal, every turnover could swing who gets a bye and who has to win on the road in Wild Card Week. And for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, the questions are real. Can they find a rhythm in a rushing game that's been sputtering? Can the offensive line resolve its issues against heavy pressure packages? And if they struggle to regain momentum now, how will they respond mentally? This franchise has habitually found ways to reset and rebound, but the reset starts with answers and adjustments, not hope alone. For the Broncos, the job isn't done. History doesn't care about early magic, it cares about finishing. Denver must defend that division lead, stay healthy, and make sure the pass rush doesn't burn out. They must find reliable ways to score beyond field goals and a mix of efficient drives. Injuries, fatigue, and the long winter can do strange things to even the stingiest defense. But for now, the mood in Denver is electric. This feels like a team that believes it can run a gauntlet and keep winning. If you're a Chiefs fan, this is the moment you tighten the belt and hold your breath. If you're a Broncos fan, this is the moment to savor the sound of a stadium that knows it witnessed a pivot. The AFC West, once again, belongs to someone new, at least for now. So here's what I'll leave you with. Championships are rarely won in December, but they are often decided in moments like the one Sunday in Denver. A sack that forces a punt, a third down conversion that flips the field, a kicker who steps up when the crowd forgets how to breathe. The Broncos found all of those things when the season demanded them, and they walked off the field not just with a win, but with control of a division that for a decade had been someone else's kingdom. If this was the Chiefs' era, the Broncos just turned the page. Now we watch to see whether Kansas City writes its comeback or Denver writes a dynasty. Denver did the impossible again. They knocked off the Kansas City Chiefs in a thriller. And Wil Lutz did what kickers dream about, a 35-yard game winner as time expired to lift the Broncos to a 22-19 victory. ESPN.com, this one had everything you want late November. Grinding defense, a low-scoring slog that felt like playoff football, and a walk-off drive that boiled down to a handful of clutch plays. The Broncos, now 9-2, pushed their winning streak to 8 games and seized firm control of the AFC West. Meanwhile, Kansas City's once comfortable perch atop the division looks shakier than it has in nearly a decade. ESPN.com Bo Nix didn't need to be heroic, he just needed to be precise. With the clock bleeding and the game tied, Nix threaded a 32-yard strike to Troy Franklin that flipped field position and set up Lutz's last kick. It was a patient, professional finish. Dink and dunk when you must, then pull the trigger when the window opens. That 32-yard play was the dagger that made the walk-off possible. ESPN.com. Credit the Broncos defense, too. They bottled up Patrick Mahomes in the clutch, generating key stops and hurries, including a third down sack that forced a Chiefs punt late and gave Denver one last chance. Denver's rush and pressure schemes repeatedly made Mahomes uncomfortable on third downs, and that defensive toughness is why the Broncos are suddenly the AFC's most dangerous surprise. ESPN.com. This wasn't a shootout. It was a chess match. The first half ended 6-6, both teams trading field goals and feeling each other out. Jaleel McLaughlin's short touchdown run gave Denver a mid-game spark, and Kareem Hunt answered for Kansas City to keep it close. But when the stakes rose, Denver found the stops they needed and the one play they couldn't afford to waste. ESPN.com, what matters going forward. The Broncos now sit 2 games clear atop the AFC West and are building legit momentum. That's a huge swing in a division the Chiefs have dominated for years. Kansas City still has chances. They've got the resume, the coach, and Mahomes, but they're suddenly in must-win territory more often than we've seen in the Andy Reid era. ESPN.com takeaways. First, Denver's defense isn't a fluke. It wins the ugly games, and the Broncos have a knack for making the big play when the clock gets small. Second, Bo Nix is maturing into a closer who doesn't try to do too much. He picked the right targets at the right time and delivered. Third, the Chiefs will have to figure out how to reclaim identity and urgency fast if they want to avoid an unexpected wildcard slog. FieldLevelMedia.com for the highlight reel. Lutz, calm and professional, made 5 field goals on the day and capped it with the game winner, the very definition of clutch. For the narrative, Denver is no longer a curiosity. They're a real contender, and their defense-first, grinded-out brand of football is paying massive dividends. ESPN.com, if you're tracking playoff maps, mark this as a turning point. The Broncos aren't just winning games, they're taking the division, and they're doing it by leaning on defense, smart quarterback play, and flawless special teams in the moments that matter. The Chiefs, they've got to respond and fast because Denver just made one of the bolder statements of the season. ESPN.com.